Sup guys, welcome to Generically Yours, a channel that proves with enough coffee and creativity, anything is possible. When I was younger, one of my family's favorite movies was Beetlejuice. That also means as a kid, I of course watched the Beetlejuice cartoon. A few years back, when my job told me, hey, you can dress up for Halloween if you want to, I said, challenge accepted. They told us this just a few weeks before Halloween. So, in my vast wisdom of crafts and just how long they take, I decided, hey, I can make a Lydia Deetz animated cosplay. It's just that spiderweb poncho. It should be simple. It's just 2 colors and some paint. Yeah, not so easy. I did, however, manage to pull it off through the power of coffee and willpower. It was stapled together because I lacked a sewing machine and I didn't want to hand stitch that much. So I stapled it at the seams and glued it. I'm not kidding. The wig took the longest. It took a lot of tears. I'm not joking. I cried, but I did it. So today, what am I going to do in my vast crafting wisdom? I'm going to recreate that cosplay on a much smaller scale. I was looking for a doll that was pale, had a very cartoony shaped face. I definitely lucked out. And when you try to repaint a doll, you can't look at the face paint that's already there. You have to see through it to the actual mold of the face and think to yourself, will this work for what I need? And this will work for what I need. Of course, the clothes are way too happy, so that's gonna have to go. I'm going to have to recreate my poncho very, very small. What we're going to use to make this doll into animated Lydia Deetz is obviously the doll, some acetone, but be careful when you use this stuff, guys. It is no joke. For the love of God, protect your surfaces. It ate through a plastic solo cup. We're also going to use some fabric, obviously, red and purple. Get the closest you can find to the color match of the cartoon. I basically asked them to cut this just 8 inches because all it has to do is be wide enough for the widest part of the doll's arms to, stretch out. So when you do this yourself, make sure you measure the length of the doll's arms spread wide, plus seam allowance. Very important. I'm hoping I did not mess this up already and not get enough. We shall find out. As we all know, Lydia Deetz has black hair, not blonde hair. So how are we going to fix that? We're going to use black yarn. And like my very own Lydia Deetz wig, I did make that little hair band thing. I made it out of foam to make it more cartoony looking. And luckily, I still have some of it left. And as for the doll's face, I'm going to freehand it to the best of my ability and paint it in with some acrylic paint. Grab some supplies, grab a doll, grab yourself some coffee to get you through it, and let's do this.
Make sure with this project that you sand all the surfaces you're going to be working on, because it's definitely going to help the paint stick to the plastic. When I decided to do the boots, I wanted to do them all black, but then I thought you wouldn't be able to see the detail. So I decided to go the opposite direction. My dream stompy boots. Like if I could find the perfect alternative goth stompy boots, this would be them. I'm vicariously living through my doll. This is the part of the project where we cut off all her hair so it doesn't get in the way for the rest of the project. This is making the pattern for the spiderweb poncho. You want to trace out the line from wrist to wrist when her arms are all the way extended, and then make a line about where her ankles are and make kind of a rounded triangle, and that is your front panel. Then trace that again on a different piece of paper, but this time you want to flip it around, put the doll back on, and trace about maybe an inch or 2 below her feet, because the back panel has to be able to trail on the ground a little bit more like it does in the cartoon. You want to cut out both parts. On the back panel, cut a slit, because that's where we're going to be putting the ribbon so that you can tie it in the back so it stays on her. Cut out both your panels and your slit for your tie. And the easiest way to make the inside panels is to just take what you already cut out, pin it to the purple fabric, and cut around it again. Make sure when you are getting ready to sew these two panels together that you leave an opening in one of the sides so that you can turn it inside out. And then these stitches don't have to be anything too special, just sew it to the best of your ability. If you got a sewing machine, even better. I do not, so therefore, hand stitching for the win. Make sure that you sew out and around the slit on the back panel that you made for the tie, and make sure to cut it open again. Then turn it inside out, or correct way out, or right way out, whatever you want to call it. And now we're going to do a very special stitch. Fold both pieces of the fabric. If you don't have an iron, just use a hair straightener like I did. Now this stitch that we're using is called the ladder stitch. Basically, you take both parts that are folded, put it under one side a little bit, pull it out, then go to the opposite side, go under a little bit, and pull it out. And when you pull it together, it makes a really nice seam. We're going to be using that ladder stitch a lot. So if you don't quite get it by the end of this video, feel free to look it up so you might be able to find a better diagram of what I'm talking about, because that's what I had to do in order to learn this. But you should be able to pick it up because I use it a lot. After sewing the poncho together, we're going to fill in the gap on the doll's chest with some hot glue and use the hot end of the glue gun to kind of smooth it out. This way we can just paint on the doll's clothes. Since the cartoon character basically wears black underneath the poncho, it'd be easy and quick and simple to just mix some Mod Podge with the paint so the paint won't chip off, and just paint the clothes on. I've heard that mixing Mod Podge with the paint will keep the paint from chipping off. Time will tell if it actually works. Now we get to put on the iconic spiderweb design of Lydia's poncho. This is probably why she's most well known, is this poncho. I decided to make my doll a little special and make my poncho reversible. So I'm making these little bat stencils so that on the inside of it, it can have a little bat pattern. I thought that'd be really cute and fitting. I decided for these stencils to sponge some lighter purple paint around them so it would kind of make a silhouette of the bat. I also put them up high enough so that when Lydia is wearing the poncho the correct way, you do not see any sign of the pattern. I thought that'd be kind of cool to have it be a nice little surprise that it's reversible. I colored the bats in black, mixed up some glitter with some Mod Podge because I didn't have any glitter glue. If you have it, please use it. Might be easier. I painted on another spider web pattern, outlined the bats in a very pale purple, just so that it would stick out a little bit more. And then I used this very thin ribbon, and I just sewed it, nothing special, you know, no special stitch, just sewed it around the neck on the inside of the poncho, so that way when the poncho is flipped the correct way, you don't see the ribbon. But this is going to be what will keep it on our doll. Next, we're going to make a wig cap so that we have a level surface to glue the hair onto the doll. Put some saran wrap over her head as tight as you can. Mark out kind of where you want the wig cap to be and just gloop some Elmer's glue on there, couple layers worth, so it's pretty sturdy. Cut off the rest of the saran wrap, and then you've got a wig cap that's perfect for the hair to stick to. Making the wefts for the hair, you just take some yarn, wrap it a good few times around something. I used my phone because it was like 6 inches, so I figured, okay, that's pretty good. Cut one side open, lay it out, take about 3 strands at a time, loop it around something decently strong. I used a skewer, and then you're going to take a cap brush and basically brush out the yarn so that it's not woven together anymore. You want it to be good and fluffy. And don't worry if a lot comes out, you'll still have more than enough. Then use a hair straightener to flatten it out. It'll make it really nice and soft and glossy. Then cut it off. I used a piece of plastic I had just so it wouldn't stick to anything important. And then along the cut edge, put some glue and kind of mix it in with the ends of the yarn so that you have it all kind of stuck together. Trim off the excess glue and then kind of cut them down to size so they're a little bit easier to work with. And those are your yarn hair wefts. Then you're going to take some more Elmer's glue and glue them kind of in a spiral pattern around the wig cap. There is a reason they gave us Elmer's glue in school. It is much stronger than you remember it being. And yeah, just keep going in a circle around the doll's head until it's all covered. If you need to, you can kind of bend the hair wefts to get them to curl and bend in the right direction. But just glue them on until the entire head is covered. Then brush it out. I did brush a little bit over so you have the top of the wefts covered. I sectioned off where the bangs were going to be and then took it off. And here comes the really fun part. Use your acetone to take off all the original face paint. Then I just used a black colored pencil to freehand Lydia's face to the best of my ability. With at least 2 or 3 reference pictures, I did my best. And then color matching the paint as good as I could. I just basically painted it in. I did not do any kind of special shading on the eye makeup or anything because I did want her to look like the animated Lydia. And there's not very much shading in that cartoon. It's pretty much flat color. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go with the flat color. I'm going to be as true to the cartoon as I can. When it comes to styling Lydia's hair, it was interesting because I was trying to get it as close to the shape of her hair as I could. I managed to realize that I could, in fact, do it the quote-unquote correct way. I was able to use her hair to flip it up, do the ponytail on top, and still have enough to do her bangs and do the correct shape on the side of her face, because on the side of her face in the cartoon it kind of loops down a little bit in front of her ear and then does a curl along the very side of her face along her cheek. And I found that with the power of Elmer's glue, I could in fact get it to do that curl. I used an extra weft I had to kind of bulk up her ponytail, and I refer to this as her troll era. I used some straws and some more glue to do her bangs, basically like your grandmother's old hair rollers. Nothing too special, just do it up in a curl and then use as much glue as you could. Now I'm going to make, I guess you could call it the hair tie or the scrunchie. I just used a piece of paper, went around to get the correct shape, traced it onto something a little bit more sturdy. And I knew there was 3 stripes, so I used this as a stencil to make the 3 stripes. And then using the foam that I had left over, I traced out the 2 purple stripes. When it came time for the pink stripe, I didn't have any pink foam, so I improvised. I painted one side of my red foam pink. But it worked out. Then I used some more Elmer's glue to glue the stripes onto a cloth ribbon that I had. I folded over the inside parts to give myself a fold so that I could again use my good new trusty friend, the ladder stitch. And here you're going to see how you do it again. You go up on one side, up a little bit through the other fold, and up a little bit more through the other fold, and then when you pull it tight, it's so pretty. I love that stitch. Then I basically mixed some more paint to match the two colors, just so that you wouldn't be able to see the ribbon in the back. Pulled it down over her ponytail. Took out her curlers, which some were easier than others. And then here comes the infamous part of her ponytail. I sectioned out as evenly as I could the 4 different parts. Cut off some excess. Used this tube that I had found, along with the bobby pins again, and more glue, because there was no way I was going to do all this work and have it come out. You could use hairspray if you want to, hair gel, but I just went full tilt and I used Elmer's glue. It's not coming out. Then after that, I used the same roller to roll up her 2 bottom curls, trimmed them a little bit. This is a book from Mini Brands Books, and I'm going to use it to make something that I'm fully aware is not in the cartoon, but I wanted it. I wanted a mini handbook for the recently deceased. I'm aware it's not in the cartoon. I'm also aware it is brown and not this purpley color, but my printer was almost out of ink. So I decided I was just going to match the color that it decided to print it and make my own little guilty pleasure of a tiny little handbook for the recently deceased. I don't care if it wasn't in the cartoon. The purpley color makes it cartoonish, and it's so frickin' cute. Once her hair's done, you can finally put it all together. Make sure you hang out to the very end to see the close-up reveal shots, including the reverse of the poncho.
Well, guys, she's done. I am so happy with how this doll turned out. Every time I look at her, I can't help but be reminded of those Disney licensed dolls where they look like the character, but there's something just a little off, like the face might not be exactly the right shape. You know what I'm talking about. You know the dolls. You've seen them. But she reminds me of that. And in a way, I'm very happy with that fact, because even though Disney dolls are just a little off, they're licensed, which means they are legit dolls. And if she reminds me of a legit doll, I feel like that's a win. It's definitely a win. I do have a plan that's more simple and sort of a part 2 to this video. In the near future, I plan to make a doll box for Lydia, because I am going to display her very proudly, but I feel like she needs a box to be displayed in. And of course, what is this box going to be in the shape of? A coffin, because of course. This is my very rough drawing of what I hope will be her future display box. So guys, if you'd like to see me attempt to make this dream a reality, make sure to subscribe for future videos so you don't miss it. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to leave a comment below. Let me know what other characters would you like to see me do a doll repaint of. And don't forget guys, on the way out, slap a like on it.